Hi everybody. In this video I'm going to be talking about the principle of least privilege. And what that means is what's stated here on this slide. A user or process should have the lowest level of privilege required in order to perform his or her assigned task, or it in the case of a process. And I kind of think of this in secret agent terms. You hear things like need to know or compartmentalization, where a secret agent only is given the amount of information they need to complete their task and not more. So it's this compartmentalized, this is all you need to know, you don't need to know this other stuff. So that's the same in computer science. So if I go here to kind of the Wikipedia article about principle of least privilege, it says the principle means giving a user account only those privileges which are essential to performing its intended function. So if you have a user on your computer, you're not going to give it the ability to like erase all the hard drives on that computer. It's just, what does this person need to do? We lock it down even more in computer science labs and stuff where you can't even install software. So we're thinking protect the system by giving the least amount of privileges. And this is true even on your own system. So even though we don't follow the rule, computer manufacturers often say that in the account that you're using day to day, it shouldn't be an administrator account with privileges to do everything like install software. And Microsoft says, here's a quote from Microsoft: running in standard user mode gives customers increased protection against inadvertent system-level damages caused by shadow attacks and malware such as rootkits, spyware, and undetectable viruses. So running in standard user mode there means running in a mode that doesn't have all these privileges. So just the privileges you need to perform your day-to-day tasks. So some malware comes in, some email with some dodgy attachment, you in some fashion click on that email, and if you're in user mode, it can perform much more limited amount of damage than if you were an administrator. That could, wipe out everything on your hard drive. It could have access to Lord knows what. So that's a motivation of why we have this principle of least privilege. And it also holds for doing work in databases, that when we're writing an application that uses a database, we only want to give that application the minimum amount of resources, of privileges that enable that application to do its job. So if an application is just printing out information about local movie times, it only needs to be able to read the database. It doesn't need to do any writing of the database. It doesn't need to access all the other databases on the database server. So we'd only, in that case, give read permission. So what we want is to make sure our application doesn't log in as the database administrator, as Postgres, when we're using PostgreSQL. One reason is we don't want to have the Postgres password, the root password, stored in our code. That would be kind of a risky thing to do. Some people in major organizations have done this and even uploaded their code to public GitHub so people could read the root password. Not a good thing. It's not going to make you in good lines with your boss. And if you screw up, if you do something wrong with your code, if that code has complete permissions on the database, it could destroy everything in the database server, all the databases. And a malicious attack on your code could also open up to destroy almost everything. So those are reasons why we don't want to do this. And as an incentive in the class, just to get you kind of used to doing this correctly, if you submit anything that does use the Postgres server, I'll just give you 0 points for that submission. So hopefully that'll convince you not to have these bad practices. Before I do this, I noticed I'd made a little error. I kind of bypassed something that went wrong in my Mac install of Postgres, which also relates to security in this least privileged one, and I want to fix that. And the problem was this. Let me see if I still have that problem. And let me try to log in here. And as you see, it didn't ask for a password even though I set one. So obviously there's something wrong with this install. When I did it on Google Cloud, it worked correctly, and I did it on Cloud 9, it worked correctly. They're set a little differently, so I need to change some configuration here. And let me just show you how to do that. And you can do the reverse in Google if for some reason you're totally motivated to do so. But you can do this command, show this configuration file, which is the one that sets how we allow users to log in. So this will give the path to the file, and it's this file I need to modify. So let me go ahead and modify that file. Okay, and let me see so I can see the path. So it was library. Hopefully I clicked that. Oh, I didn't click it right. Library, applications, support, Postgres, var 9.6, and then this PG Postgres HBA configuration file. And that information is down here where I say how do I let people log in? And all these say trust, meaning you don't even need a password to log in. So that's kind of dodgy. So anyone who has access to your computer could log in as root user to the database. And so I'm going to change these to MD5, means you have to, in order to log in, you need to have an encrypted password. So I'm saving that. Hopefully that'll work. And now I'm going to restart the server. So I'm going to stop the server. I'm going to start it again. Okay, I think that will work. Let me give that a shot. And now it asks for a password, so I fixed that problem. And now I have to type the password incorrectly. There we go. So I'm back to that. So if we want the principle of least privilege, we need to be able to create users that have limited privileges. And let me show you how to do that. So creating a user in Postgres is pretty easy. It's called create role, and then we give it a name, like a username. So let's say petman. I've already created petman. Let's say petman2. All right, so that creates a role. And let me create another role. Create role Swift. This means I'm going to let this user log in. So petman2 here can't log in, so it's kind of a limited amount of things this petman2 could do. Here I'm saying this user Swift will be able to log in. So that creates a user Swift, and we'll let that person log in. So I can see the users by just going \du. I see there's petman2, and it says right here cannot log in. That's kind of a bummer. Postgres, which is a super user, Raz is a super user. Those are the ones that we don't want to use when given things for our application. And this one I just created, Swift. So I can delete a user, but oops. I can just say drop, let me get that up, role, and then the name of the user I want to delete, petman. And let me move this up just a bit so people can see it. So that dropped that user. If I do \du again, I no longer have petman there. I can give petman2 login. I can say alter role petman2 with login. And here, let me just make a mistake. So here what I forgot was the semicolon, and I didn't get a response that I did anything. And if you're not used to how SQL works, it looks like it actually worked, but you need to put that semicolon in. And now let's look at and now it no longer says cannot log in. So that's how I create users in Postgres. Now I don't have a password set up, so let me set a password. Let me set it for Swift. So the command is \password, and then I give it the name of the user I want to set the password for. And I'm typing a password for. All right, and now let me give it some permissions. Let's say I want to give Swift permission to read information about the dog breeds we created. Well, let me go back to that file that we created a while ago. I updated it a little bit since the last video. So now I have two tables of breeds, which has what we did before, and some breeds I put in. And now I've added one called dogs, which is has a breed. Like I can say there's a dog named Watson who's a border collie. So that's my file there. And let me see if I can read into that. I don't remember where I started Postgres, so this may fail. Okay, I'm going to quit out of here just so I see where I am. Okay, so this is, again, where I can read in. It depends on where I am in the system to where I read the file in. So let me start Postgres again. So this time, I'm not in the directory where this SQL file is, so I need to give it the path. Oops, I didn't type in the password. Let me fail out of that. Okay, I'm going to read. It's in this directory, ras, and the name of the file is dogs.sql. So I just give it the path. And there I have that database, and I'm in the database now. So let's say I want to grant to Swift, the user Swift, to be able to read the breeds table. So I would do this, grant select, which is the SQL thing for reading, on what table I want, breeds, to Swift. Okay, and I'm done. So let me log in as Swift. So I quit out of there. I'll say PSQL, user Swift, host, localhost, and I have to tell it what database I want to log into. So I'm going to say dogs. So it asks for that password. Now I'm in dogs, and I can do a select on breeds because I gave it permission. Oop. And there I get the information there. But if I try to do the same for dogs, it says I don't have permission for dogs. I don't have, I can see all the tables there, but if I go to a different, if I change into the Postgres directory or database and try to look at things there, I can't find anything. So let me go back to dogs. So I'm pretty limited in what I can do here in dogs. Let me add more permissions. Well, I can create a role. Let's try creating a role. Create role Fred. And so I don't have permissions to do it. And let me just see if I can drop a table, which would get rid of a table. I can't do that either. So really, the only thing this user can do is read the information in dogs. So ahead of time when I'm developing my application, I think, well, what's the minimum amount that this application needs in order to do its job? And now I figured, well, it just needs to read information. So let me quit out of that. Let me log in as Postgres again. Let me switch to dogs. And now let's say I want the user to be able to add dogs to my dog table. So I wanted to both look at the information in dogs and also insert into dogs. So these are the dog names, the actual individual dogs. So let me do that. So I can say grant, select, insert on dogs to Swift. Okay, so that looks good. It looks like I should be able to insert into dogs. And whoops. So let me try that. All right, and now let me try to insert something. Insert into dogs. It was breed, name. Okay, let's see how this works. And I get a permission denied. And let me explain why I get this permission denied. It's because of when I declare ID serial, that means it's an auto-incrementing column. It's like the first dog I enter is 1, the next one's 2. I don't have to keep track of that. It keeps track for me. When I create a serial, Postgres automatically creates what's called a sequence here, and we need to give the owner or the user Swift permission to alter this sequence. So let me go ahead and do that. changing to dogs. And now let me just say grant all on dogs ID sequence to Swift. Okay, now I'm logging in again. And let's see if I can actually, okay, there I have one. Let's see if that works now. So it inserted, so that worked. So I've added an entry. So that's kind of the user accounts in a nutshell. Let me just go over a few more here. And let me get into Postgres. I can revoke permission. So let's say I don't want to use Swift anymore. Whoops. So that gets rid of everything. And again, I can look at DU here and see what things can do. Let me grant. So that shows how I can revoke privileges. If I want to see what those privileges are, there's this command \Z. And we can see what those permissions are. So Swift has read permission for this table dogs. Postgres has all these. The Postgres user has all these. So that's the principle of least privilege. I hope that was helpful. Take care.